guys, it's Kat and I am back today with no eye makeup on, which implies I am doing a first impressions sort of review on a new palette. So I wasn't actually going to do this review. I bought this palette yesterday, this new NARS palette. It is the Afterglow Eyeshadow Palette. And I bought it because I saw it in store last week and I swatched it and I'm like, oh, it's gorgeous. I don't need more eyeshadow palettes. But I love NARS's sort of reformulated formula. I've got some of their duos and I use them like all the time. I really like the formula. So because I like the color story of this, I was like, look, I was thinking about it for about 3 days. And when I went back to the shops, I'm like, I'm buying it. Now, I did show this on Instagram and so I had a few people say you're going to review it. My intentions wasn't to review it because I sort of just wanted to use this as like a, sometimes I find that when I review products, that's the packaging, it's so gorgeous. Sometimes I find when I review products like this, I sort of overanalyze them, which is good for a review, but it takes the fun out of the product. And sometimes I just like to, that looks so gorgeous on camera. Sometimes I just want to buy products and use them and sort of love the product, if that makes sense, and not like overthink it. But because I did have requests from people to do a review, I decided, okay, I'll do it, but I might make it a mini review. So normally what I do in these reviews is I try a palette for the first time, which is what I'm going to do on camera today. This is the palette, by the way. I will do a zoom in a second, but it's gorgeous. So usually I will do a first impressions demonstrating it on camera, and then I'll check back in with a week's worth of looks, and then I conclude at the end what I think about it. Because I don't want to overanalyze this too much and it's a fairly small palette in the scheme of things, I might make this more of a 3 or 4 day look, so I can still sort of do a review and let you know what I think, but sort of, I don't know, be a bit more casual with it. So I will have timestamps in the description box if you want to jump anywhere. I will have swatches, I will do the sort of get ready with me, and then I'll check back in with a few days look and the conclusion. So I'll list all those in the description box if you don't want to watch the whole thing. These can get quite long. All right, but I'm going to start by talking about the actual palette, a bit more information. So essentially this is from a new NARS collection. It is, like I said before, the Afterglow Eyeshadow Palette. That's the box. It's very, very shiny. It's got a bit of information on the back. The packaging is gorgeous. It is sort of a plastic, but it looks foiled, like it looks like it's got foil underneath. It is very textured, it is very bumpy, but it gives a really cool sort of shiny effect. It's got NARS sort of cut into it, which is really cool. It has the shades on the back. You can see that it has, they contain 1.4 grams each and there's 12 shades. And then inside it's got a really nice sized mirror, and you can see all the 12 shades. There are a bunch of nudes, there's browns, there's some sort of really warm tone golds and orangey colors and a couple of pinks. Now, I'm not a huge fan of pink eyeshadow. The matte pink, I do sort of see that it could be used as a nude or with the nude looks. This pink was the one that I was least interested in, but I do think it works well with the color story. And I feel like if it's 1 out of 12 that I don't love, but I don't hate, it's fine. Without swatching the palette, it looks like there's maybe 2 that are satin. There looks like there's 4 shades that are matte. There's 1 that's duochrome, 3 that are really, really highly sort of sparkly metallic, and 2 that are more traditional metallic. That's what it sort of looks like to me. So this is a limited edition palette, so it should be around for a little while, but if you did want to pick it up, it's not permanent. It's part of a limited edition range. There's also a really, really beautiful blush and highlighter palette that's come out in that range as well. Would have totally picked that up because I love the colors, but the highlighters were cream. I'm not about that life, but it's a really, really beautiful collection. And it's available in Australia at Mecca, which is where I picked this up. So yeah, if you're interested, it's available now. All right, let's start with the top row. So we've got this nude satin, which is a very soft shade and it matches my skin tone really well. So it's sort of hard to capture, but it's a nice soft shade. We've got a nice soft brown. So this is a matte brown. It's very, very like finely milled. We've got this sort of coppery sparkly shade, which is beautiful. And then we've got a darker matte brown, which can never pick up enough on my little finger. Hang on a sec. All right, for the second row, we have this sort of peachy orangey matte. Again, really, really soft. Not super, super pigmented, but I don't think these are intending to be super pigmented. We have that sort of peachy pink, which is actually a nice sort of transition color. We have this gorgeous duochrome shade, so it looks like a glittery topper. It's very much like Stylishly Mary from MAC, so it's got a gold to pink sheen. I'm not sure if you can capture that very well, but that'd be a beautiful sort of topper shade or over a glitter glue. And then we have this beautiful cool toned sort of beigey nude, which I really, really love. Onto the last row, we have a bit of a flaky gold. So again, this is sort of similar to this coppery shade, but a little bit just more gold toned, less orange. We've got this sort of satin, soft, peachy nude shade. So it's very, very subtle, but it's like a nice just wash of satin, similar to this formula, but just more of a peachy version. So it doesn't have much of a shimmer. It's got more of a sheen. Then we've got that pink. So I'll build that up a little bit more. So it does have a bit of a magenta sort of shift to it. I'm not too sure if you can see that. It's not super shimmery. You can definitely use that in the crease, sort of like a matte. And then we have this beautiful dark brown, which has like a dark brown base, but almost like an orangey shimmer to it. I might build that up a bit. So it's almost got like an orange sort of flash to it. I might zoom in a bit more so you guys can see, but it's very, very muted. But I do like that there is a nice mix of finishes. There's some topper shades, some sort of everyday shimmery nudes, some everyday satins, some everyday mattes. You've got some, yeah, it's more of a muted palette, but I sort of dig that these days. All right, I just thought I'd show you the palette after I had swatched it, so you can see that there's no gouges taken out of it. It wasn't very crumbly, wasn't super soft, so they are quite nicely robust eyeshadows, and I'll let you know what I think about them after I do the look. So I do already have eyeshadow primer on. It's actually been on for a very long time, probably about an hour now. So it is the NARS Smudge Proof Tinted Eyeshadow Base in the shade Medium. So I've just put that on my eyes. If you're wondering, I do have a skin reaction on my eye there. So there's a bit of flaky skin. I also have one under here. So my eye skin isn't looking as good as it usually does. I've got some stuff, my body's breaking down, it is what it is. But I haven't set this eyeshadow base, but it has been on for probably an hour now. All right, with a really, really old fluffy brush, I don't even know what brand it is, I'm getting some of that shimmery, that sort of satin cream shade, just to sort of set the crease a little bit and just see how this looks. So you can see it does give a bit of a shimmer. It's highlighting my eye problem, thank you for that. But if you do like just a soft sort of sheen, this one will give it to you. So it could be a brow bone highlight, could be a soft inner corner highlight, but I'm just sort of using that to set the crease just a tiny bit. Then with the same anonymous brush, I'm going to get the shade next to it, which is that matte. I'm just also using, you can see how pigmented that is. So these don't swatch the best, but they do perform on the eye. I've got a lot of foundation in my hair. This is annoying. They do pick up on the brush and deposit on the eye really nicely. So I really like NARS eyeshadows. Ever since they reformulated them, I think they're really, really nice quality for just everyday wear. Like they're not, like I said, they're not sort of Instagram crazy colored. And they're not super, super bold and cut crease like. But I think if you just like that sort of, I don't know, color, but controllable color. I really dig the formula. All right, with the Real Techniques base shadow brush, I'm just going in with that sort of cool tone shimmery nude. This is a color that I would just wear all over the lid on a daily basis. There is a bit of fallout. I do like to use, people like to criticize me, but I do like to use these sort of semi-flat but semi-fluffy brushes. I just feel like they apply product really nicely. For me, if you prefer firmer flat brushes, go for your life. I don't like them. It is what it is. So I did set my base so it's not really sticking like really boldly, but I also like that this is just sort of like a nude wash of color. It's sort of what I wanted this palette for, to be honest. Just something that I can chuck on without much thought, without much effort, and that looks sort of flattering. But yeah, so if you're a bit more careful or you tap off your brush, you get a lot less fallout, and that's just a beautiful sort of twinkly look. I love this tone, this sort of taupey, bronzy tone. You can definitely build it up a bit more if you had a sticky base, or if you apply a little bit with your fingers. It just gives a twinkle to the eye that I think is really pretty. And I'll just dust that off like nothing happened. Just with the tip of that brush, I'm running a little bit on my lower lash line as well. And this is honestly how I wanted to sort of use this palette. If I could just stop there, do a bit of liner or a bit of mascara or both, and then just call it a day. So yeah, it's not the most impressive finish or the most bold look, but that is exactly why I wanted this palette. It's just a really pretty nude look. It emphasizes your features. You could just, throw it on really quickly, be done with it. And that's what I sort of wanted from this palette. And that's why I wasn't going to review it. But I am going to go a little bit deeper today because I am filming beauty news. So I do want some depth going on. So I might go in with the same brush with that dark brown sort of orangey shimmer color. All right, again, I think this would sort of benefit from a base that hasn't been set because it's adding a lot of depth to it, but you're not getting that shimmer that you can see in the swatch. It's more acting like a matte satin, like a dark brown matte satin, which I'm not mad about. I think it's a beautiful sort of deepening effect. But that sort of flash of orange, I'm not sure, hang on, I'll brighten that a bit. I'm not sure if we're getting it. It's looking a little bit more orange on camera than it is in person, but it's super easy to apply, and it does sort of blend itself, like it blends into the other shades almost instantly. It's really easy, but I don't get that sort of orange flash effect, which I was sort of interested in. So it definitely adds warmth. Let's just see if I can tap some more on to get more of that more intense orange effect. You can definitely see it, but it's more just I think if you wanted that to be your main sort of vibrant color, you'd need to put that on a sticky base for it to really grip and really show the shimmer. Otherwise, when you blend it out, it sort of looks a lot more just warm satin brown, which I think is still really, really pretty. It's a nice color, very, very flattering. Again, normally I would just leave it there, but because I'm testing out a few things and I'm filming, I'm going to go in with a smaller brush. This is just from Kaleidos Makeup. It's the S5 brush, and I'm going to go in with that duochrome shade just to see how it goes as an inner corner sort of highlight. So once again, this is just a topper sort of clear base, but a bit of sparkle in it, which is really pretty. I'll just turn the brightness down so hopefully you can see it a bit more on camera, but it just adds a bit of twinkle and a bit of brightness to the inner corner. I'm not sure if you can see. Again, very, very subtle. It's not the most sort of punchy palette, but yeah, it's really nice for sort of everyday or office or whatever you're doing. I think they blend so nicely together. And I think I'm going to finish that look with some of the matte dark brown. So on the same brush, I've just wiped off that shimmer. I'm just sort of lining my lower lash line a little bit with the matte dark brown in the corner, just a little bit in the outer corner here. I don't want to take away from that slight sort of red flash that we've got going on that is maybe hard to see on camera. But yeah, just to sort of deepen the lower lash line. All right, that's the eyeshadows done. I'm going to go off and do my liner and my mascara and some lashes, and I'll come back and let you know what I think about this on first impressions. All right, so this is a look with some gel liner and some mascara and some half lashes. So I just used my Project Pan products. Pretty much everything on my face today is Project Pan besides the eyeshadows. So it's just a pretty nude brown look, which is exactly what I've been going for lately. I really like it. I like the fact that these sort of soft eyeshadows, they would flatter a lot of different ages because like it sort of minimizes my eye issues that I'm having. So it sort of just glides over them. So yeah, it's a sort of subtle eyeshadow, but really, really flattering. So again, on first impressions, I really like this look. This is exactly why I bought this palette. I wanted something sort of basic, something nude with a little bit of color variation that I can throw on. It sort of blends itself. There's no issues with, chalkiness or, trying to get something to work. They just sort of throw on really easily by themselves, and you can just create a look that, makes you feel really pretty. All right, I'm back with look number 2 from this palette, and I decided to go just something a little bit soft and sort of sheer and peachy. So the shades that I decided to use are, I started by putting this color in the crease. So I wanted to use that pink and show that if you sort of mix it with some other shades, it can be not too vibrant pink, like you can actually use it as like a soft nude. I put this shade all over the lid, so this is that satin shade. This one actually looked quite peach on the lid. You can see it's quite sheer, and it does have a slight sheen that doesn't really, I guess you can see a little bit of lightness on the lid, like it hopefully you'll see when I zoom in, but it does reflect a little bit of light, but it's still quite peachy. On the inner corner, I wanted to put a little bit more brightness, so I put that shade there. So you can just see it's added a little bit of lightness, but it is, once again, very sort of sheer and very satin, similar to the shade on the lid. So these are sort of like the most sort of sheer shades, I think, in the palette. I do like this one as a way just to add a little bit of brightness without adding too much shimmer or too much matte. It just sort of adds a little bit of brightness. You could sort of mix colors together to lighten them if you wanted to. And then just for fun, I thought because I had quite a lot of peach and pink, I decided to use this shade and that shade on the lower lash line. So on the inner half, I sort of have this shade. On the outer half, I have that matte. So I've just gone these shades today. So I did all sort of blend together because these are very blendable eyeshadows. They sort of work together really easily. I'm not sure if you can see the distinction between the pink and the peach and the sort of orangey matte shade there. I sort of, I put them on and then I sort of blended them together so they look like a bit of a watercolor sort of wash of color, but I think it's a really pretty color combination, and I think there is, I don't know, usually these shades don't really flatter my eye color, but there's something about this tone that actually works really well. Usually this makes me look a little bit unwell, like pinky sort of peach colors sort of stand out. They make me look a little bit sickly, but I think this one is actually really, really pretty. So this is the look zoomed in, so you can definitely see that there is a lot of peachiness going on, just sort of nuances between the sort of matte orange, the pink that I sort of diffused out quite a lot, the peach sort of satin, the bit of brightness on the inner corner. It's all very soft. It's all very sort of, like I said, sort of watercolor-like. I'll see if I can brighten this a little bit so you can see. It was easy to apply, but yeah, they're not really bold colors. So definitely the satins applied the sheerest, but I think, again, they sort of applied in a flattering way, and I like it. All right, we're back with look number 3, and today I want to do something quite simple, no liner, because that's what I tend to wear when I'm just hanging around and not doing too much. So today I wanted to play with this gold color because there's 2 golds in here. I do think they're a little bit too similar because I don't think you need them both in the palette, but I want to go for this one just all over the lid as like a twinkly sort of all over the lid color. Then I used this brown on the lower lash line and in the outer corner, and then I blended it out with that sort of light sort of orange color. So yeah, just 3 colors. I also went in with this one just on the inner corner a bit. So it's mainly matte on the lower lash line and then shimmer sort of in this area, but I'll zoom in. I think it's a really pretty look. It's really basic, but really effective. And usually I don't like these really orangey sort of, I don't know if you can see it properly, but usually I don't like these really orangey golds because I don't find them to be super flattering. Similar to how the other day I was talking about the peaches, I don't really find them flattering on my coloring. But for some reason, I think this is actually a really nice look. It is in person anyway. And it's got a nice amount of twinkle. Like, it's not too glittery, but it's also, yeah, it's like everyday sparkle, which I like. So I'll zoom in. So again, it's really orange, but for some reason this tone I quite dig. It's not too sort of, I don't know, too clashing orange. It's actually quite beautiful and wearable. So yeah, I've blended it out with that matte orange, which I'm not sure if you can see in here. It just sort of, yeah, blended it out. I've got a bit of depth with the brown, a little bit of depth in the outer corner with the brown, but mainly it's that sort of shimmer color. Again, like, I think you could get this effect with this one or this orange, so I don't think you necessarily need 2 in this one palette, but the one that I used was this one. All right, we're back for the last look. So I did say this was going to be a very quick review, so I'm only doing it over 4 days instead of my normally like 6, 7, 8 days, but I thought, let's keep it simple. So I wanted to do a more colorful look to end with because there are colors in this palette. And even though I personally bought them for the non-colored sort of looks, for everyday looks, I can't ignore the fact that there is a pink, there is a shimmery orange. So I decided to play that up a bit today. And yes, since last time, I've had a haircut, so yes, I'm aware. All right, so I'll describe what I've done today. I wanted to inject some color, but not make it like all color, if that makes sense. So I put pink sort of in the inner crease. Wait, I'll start with what I did first. So I put a base on. I also want to mention that this looks a bit wonky because again, I've got that sort of like dry area, that dry patch that makes things look a little bit different. So it looks a little bit uneven and wonky, but it actually isn't, it's just my face. So what I started with was I put my normal primer on. I decided to put a little bit of glitter glue on the inner half because I wanted to use that duochrome shade again, because I'd only really use that as like an inner corner. So I wanted to use that sort of as the bright area on the lid. I think it's super, super subtle. It is a nice sort of pinky tone that works, like it's got pink and gold to it. So I don't know if you're gonna see in this light, but it sort of looks pink and then the reflect is gold. So the good thing about that type of duochrome is that it can be a highlighter or a brightening color for pretty much any color in this palette because you have warms, you have sort of more cool tone shades, and it can work with all of them because it's got the pink and the gold. So I wanted to use that on the lid. I hadn't used the orange, so I wanted to use orange, so I put that on the outer corner. So here is where the glitter glue was because I wanted that duochrome. I want to see how intense you can get it. And like I said, it's pretty and it's bright, but it's not super, super duochrome flash, if you know what I mean. So it's just very, very subtle. So I also put that duochrome a little bit on the lower lash line. Then I went in with that shimmery orange, which applied really nicely. I put that on the middle of my lower lash line. And then originally I was just gonna put this pink shade just in the outer corner there, which is what I've done. But then I thought, no, I sort of wanna give the pink an actual shot and play with it a bit more. So I took that pink on a small, sort of very small fluffy brush, and I just put it in the crease, just at the front of my crease, which I'll zoom in and show you in a second. And then what I did was I took this pink matte and I sort of blended it into the rest of the crease. So I mainly put the bright pink just here, and then I sort of used the matte pink to sort of blend it out. I also used the matte pink to blend out this area. And then I went back in with a more detailed brush to really intensify that. It was really easy to build up. When I first started, I put a small amount on. I wanted to make it as minimal as possible, but then I decided to lean into it and really like build it up. So that's why the crease is quite pink. So I haven't done like a cut crease where you put the color in the crease, you put the primer on the lid to blank out the lid and then put another color on. I literally did the lid colors and then I just sort of put the color into the crease, if that makes sense. So I'll zoom in. So just to confirm again, these are the 4 shades that I used. So that, like the main part of the lid, that is the orange, that is the bright pink, and I use that to sort of just diffuse it all out. So only 4 colors. So hopefully you can see that that pink is actually very, very vibrant. So for a palette that has quite subtle shades in it and like a subtle sort of formula, you can really build up the pink. And this wasn't even trying to build up the pink. This was just sort of like, I put a little bit on and then I thought, no, I'll build it up a tiny bit, but you could definitely build it up more if you wanted to. Hopefully you can see that that's a duochrome there. Like it's because I'm not catching the light, you can't really see the nuances of it, but you can see it's a nice light shimmer shade that sort of blends with all the colors in this palette, the pinks and the oranges. You can see the orange here and the orange down there, and then the pop of pink that I just took in that outer corner. Focus on this eye camera, so just that pink there. All right, before I conclude this, I just want to insert myself again to say hello. But I noticed that the look that I did yesterday, so the colorful look, yes, I've still got short hair, I've just got it up. I noticed that throughout the day, like towards the end of the day, the look started to crease. Now, don't really understand why it did that, because normally eyeshadows don't crease on the primer that I used, which was the NARS one. But the only thing I can think was that mainly it was this shade that creased. And I feel like if you get these really sort of sparkly shades, so I'm talking this orange shade, this gold shade, maybe the duochrome shade, because they're kind of like a flakier, sparklier sort of formula. I feel like if you really pack them on, they don't always stick to the base completely, and maybe they can sort of migrate and move a little bit. So I feel like it's one of those situations where you put a layer on, it sticks to the base, and then if you pack it on top of that, maybe the shimmer doesn't actually still stick to the base. It sort of can move on the lid as the lid moves. I don't know if that makes sense. Makes sense in my head. It's sort of like if you have something wet and then you powder over it to dry it and then you pack on more powder. That powder doesn't have the wetness to sort of stick to, so it can sort of move as your eyelids move. I sort of feel like it's one of those situations. So if you do want to use this palette particularly boldly, you may run the risk of having a little bit of creasing just in the crease. Now, it didn't bother me too much because it still looked quite nice, and all I did was I just sort of wiped it with my finger and it sort of blended back over the crease a little bit, but it was something that I wanted to point out that I think this is probably better used sheerly. But while I'm here, I may as well just mention that this is another sort of boring look. This is not like a look that I was planning on telling you guys about, but I may as well tell you about it anyway. But this is how I sort of wanted to wear this palette, sort of sheerly, really basic. I've actually got no primer on. I'm just using this shade and a little bit of that shade together. So shimmer all over the lid and lower lash line, and then the dark brown just sort of in the outer corner. So yeah, definitely nothing exciting, but you can just see that it, you know, applied really evenly. It's got no primer on, so it still does adhere to the eye really nicely without a primer. And this is just sort of what I'd wear on a weekend, or if I'm just hanging around the house or going to the shops or editing like I'm doing today. So this is just my basic sort of daily eye makeup, which is why I bought this palette. All right, so those were the 4 looks to give you a mini review of this palette. Again, I didn't really want to overanalyze it and make a huge long video out of this, because I bought this not to review. I bought this just to sort of wear organically and wear on an everyday basis. And what I've been liking lately, which is sort of what I like about this palette, is I like an eyeshadow that I can blend really easily, that applies really nicely, isn't too like you put a color on and then you're like, oh my God, I've got to like diffuse this out or make this work because it's too bold and it's too sort of, I don't know, too much of an intense look. So this fits my sort of criteria for daily makeup right now, which is why I bought it and why I wasn't planning on reviewing it. But since I am reviewing it, I may as well tell you what I think the pros and cons are about this. So I definitely think the main pro of this is the formula. So if you're the type of person like me that just wants a formula that you can easily apply, that flatters the eye, that gives you sort of a defined look, a bit of color, but nothing too bold, and it just, you know, works really well, I think you will really like this palette, especially if you like these sort of tones like browns, pinks, oranges, golds, whatnot. I think it's a really, really beautiful palette. I think this is fun for like spring and summer. I'm in autumn at the moment, but I still think it's beautiful. And it's more sort of, I would say more natural makeup, more bridal makeup, more sort of everyday enhancing your natural features makeup, minimizing any texture or any like creasing you might have. So it's a very, very flattering eyeshadow palette. I also really like the color combo. I do like oranges, but I often find that when I use oranges, they make me look quite sick. But one thing I did notice about this particular palette is for some reason they've got the peachy sort of shades, the pinks, the oranges. The tone is actually really, really beautiful. And for some reason, yeah, they work for me, which I'm happy about because I bought it to use. So I'm glad it works. But I think some of the things that some people will find a pro about this, other people will find a con. So again, if you're the type of person that likes indie makeup that, you know, really packs a punch and you can put, you know, a swipe of blue and it's the most intense thing in the world, like I definitely think that those eyeshadows have a place in the world and in my makeup collection as well. But if you like that and you like that on a daily basis, I would steer clear from this completely. So yeah, if this formula doesn't sound like it's your cup of tea, that's definitely going to be a negative for you, and I would say steer clear from it, especially because it's not a cheap palette. And that's another con about it, is it's a very expensive palette, and you really have to love this formula and love these sort of more muted everyday wearable looks, just that kind of, you know, flattering the eye sort of look, to actually want to even swatch this. Personally, I really like this palette. I bought it for a reason. I've tried NARS eyeshadows before, so I knew what I was getting into, and this has not disappointed me. It sort of is fitting the sort of eyeshadow looks that I'm currently wanting at the moment, and it's giving a little bit more. So it's giving, you know, a bright color that I wasn't really excited for, but even though I am wearing it quite boldly today, I don't dislike this look. So I don't love it being in there because it's a space that they could have put something that I would use probably more frequently, but at the same time, it does work with the palette, so I don't begrudge it too much. So yeah, that's my mini review of the NARS, what is this called? Afterglow Eyeshadow Palette. If you do like NARS eyeshadow quality and the color story speaks to you and you're happy to spend the money on it, I do recommend it. But if you are that person that likes the really punchy, bold, duochrome, pigmenty kind of cut crease look, I would probably not even bother swatching this. But yeah, I really like it. So there we go. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.